This is Christoph Yalik.
This is Just Janet.
And this is K. Colley.
And this is
the Just Nuggets Podcast.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Just Nuggets Podcast. I'm here alongside Christoph Yalik. How you doing today?
Ask that to Jays.
You're going to pass it to me, huh? Just Janet says,
how you doing?
Oh, I'm still stunned and shocked. Shocked.
I am happy. I'm happy. I'm hopeful. I'm elated. I'm a little sad.
Well, before we get into it, it is my fault. It is April 8th, 2025. And the
AKA Liberation Day for Calvin Booth.
And I think the reason why the podcast is starting on this tempo, if you have not noticed or have you been underneath a rock
today,
the Nuggets have not only fired Coach Mike Malone, they have finally got rid of
GM.
Finally, all nice. Like I was all sad when I said Mike Malone. I said finally, my fault. They finally got rid of Calvin Booth and completely took out the whole the front office. I mean, when it comes to front office, GM and head coach. So
yeah,
thoughts. Maybe we start with Calvin Booth because I think that one was I wanted Malone. I feel like there's a lot of praise that we have to give to. So I just want to. We can kind of take wherever you want, but I was saying maybe we can start with Calvin Booth or Mike Malone. Which one you want to go at, Christoph?
We'll start with Calvin Booth because that's the one I have the least amount of good things to say about. I'm happy the dude lost his job. I think it was long overdue, and I'm not going to sit here and cry over this. I wanted this to happen more so than I wanted the Nuggets to win the championship. And trust me, I wanted the Nuggets to win the championship. And yes, you guys who are listening to this podcast know I don't like Calvin Booth, so you came here and you're going to hear me stomp on this man's grave. I hope he never gets another job in the NBA. Truth be told, not in Denver. Like, I'm so happy he's no longer our GM. And if we lose Mike Malone in the process, that is a speed bump on the way to $1 billion to me. Have you ever watched the Social Network when Rashida Jones' character says that to Mark Zuckerberg? She said, it's a speed bump. Just pay them. Just pay him. You know what I mean? And Coach Malone is the greatest coach in the history of this fine organization, the organization I love. Without him, we didn't get a championship. We'll get more in depth into some of the attributes and moments of his tenure here, and I'm sad to see him go. But if you asked me yesterday morning, let alone a week ago, would you trade Calvin Booth's job for Mike Malone's? I would have said yes, 1,000%. I would have signed, and the fact that they both go on the day when they are still in position to get the 3 seed in the Western Conference this season is unprecedented. However, after listening to Josh Kroenke, and I'll let you go after this at this point, Jace. After listening to Josh Kroenke today talk about the entire situation, he made a good point. I thought they asked, "Why do it now?" He's like, in sports, you don't know. You don't know what the future has promised. As Nuggets fans, we know that definitively. We watched our second best player get hurt and gone for a season. Like, you don't know. Tomorrow's not promised in general, but definitely not in sports. But if you know you're going to fire your coach and your GM at the end of the season, why wait?
Yeah.
Do it now.
Yeah.
Do it now. If you think the season's lost and they already lost the locker room and they have a toxic work environment and you know you're going to fire them, why wait? Fire them now. I'm not upset about the timing of it. If you're going to do it, get it over with. Let's start the move on and let's finish out this season and go into the playoffs. And we're now like you don't know what's going to happen. How is this team going to rally? How are they going to go forward? Can they win a championship? I don't know. They're talented enough to do it. We've been saying that all year. They don't have a bench. You want to know why? Because the dude who built the team is no longer here. So now we can look forward to that. And so there's a lot of things, and that's why I said I'm hopeful. This firing, specifically the GM, gave me life and gave me hope back as a Nuggets fan.
Yeah. Go ahead. Thank you for I'm going to miss Michael Malone. I think he was a great coach for the Nuggets. Came at a time when he could relate to Jamal and Joker. Got them where they got in their careers to place where they won a championship. Joker became the best player in the world on his watch, and so I can't be more thankful for that. I'm going to miss him. I'm going to miss his looking over there and not seeing him on the sidelines. Um, I think he did a lot for the city of Denver. We got a parade. I mean, when you get a parade, like Joker said, I love being on parade. So we got that from him. So he'll always be renowned and famous in Denver Nuggets lore. So from that perspective, I think he's a good coach. I think he'll get a job pretty darn quick. So I don't think he'll be sitting on the sideline next season. He'll be coaching somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
So from that perspective, I just want to give him all the flowers. I don't have the words to say how much over the time of this podcast, maybe we'll talk about him a lot more, but I appreciate all he did for the Nuggets. Calvin Booth, I tried to defend you a couple years ago, right after, you did great. You got the Nuggets to the championship. You were the GM when we got there. So for that, I thank you. But you really should have got us some veterans to go along with Joker. If not last year, certainly this year, and certainly when we went past the All-Star break. Everybody knew you were going to get somebody to help us, and you never did. And we're going to talk about how the Nuggets played. Did they play their starters too much? Their bench was never, developed, all that. I get that's part of the issue, I'm sure. But your job was to make sure that we weren't going to waste a year with Joker. And this one almost is slipping by. I mean, we're going to be number 4 seed, maybe 7, depending on how we don't have the tiebreaker against a whole lot of them. They said the Warriors and we tied with them. So, I don't know. We're shooting for just trying to get in by the hair on our chinny chin chin. So, and that's because of the GM position, not getting. That's what we needed around Jokers, because we were going for championships. Whether you were going for development, that's maybe your song to sing. But all the rest of us, this pod, and all the Denver fans I know, we were looking for our second championship, if not, many with Joker, at least 2. So that's how I feel. Thank you, Malone, for all you did.
Yeah, I would say so. Just for those listening that don't know the whole kind of ins and outs, neither do we have every information. But from what we can take away from it is that there was basically two philosophies about how the Nuggets should run and how they should operate. On one hand, you have Mike Malone, who, like us, saw that there was a championship window. He wanted players that could help him win now to win championships. He was going to play the vets. That's why you saw Russell Westbrook getting his minutes no matter what throughout this season. He was going to roll with his dogs. He has a way of coaching his dogs. You know how he talks to Jamal Murray. He loves him some Jamal Murray. He loves himself some Nikola Jokic. Those are his dogs. They were with him from when, as you said, all those years of being a coach. They were with him from the jump. On the other hand, you have Calvin Booth, who first year comes in, wins a championship. He thinks he is all-knowing because, again, you won a championship on a roster that was largely Tim Connelly's. And this is not me taking away from Calvin Booth. It's just the honest truth. That championship went to your head because it was your first year, first championship.
And he did bring in Bruce Brown and KCP.
I was going to make the point about that.
And you felt that you had the ear to the streets of how to run an organization. It doesn't matter. To me, a lot of this, if you watch The Last Dance, you get a lot about how coaches and GMs go at it head to head. But regardless, there's these two philosophies. And Calvin Booth's philosophy was that he wanted to, yes, we have Jokic and all them, but we need to build up these young guys, and you got to play my rookies. You got to play my guys. I believe in Jalen Pickett. You got to play him over Russ. I believe in Julian Strawther. You got to play him over the next guy, right? Same with Peyton Watson. So all these guys are his guys, and he wanted them to play in.
And put Najee in there too.
And ultimately, Michael Malone, as we've known, has always been a stubborn coach when it comes to I play my guys, I play winners, I'll bench people. And there was this continuous collide where it seemed as if he lost the locker room because he has the old guys, but he don't have the young guys ears to the street. And ultimately that combustion helped both of them get fired. And to your point, Jay's Mike Malone is the greatest coach to ever coach the Nuggets.
Yeah.
He even beat Doug Moe's record. He ended up with 471 wins as a head coach.
And then George Karl, who had a really good stellar team, got him to the playoffs a lot.
Mike Malone will forever be a Nuggets legend when it comes to coaching, his ability to lead this team. I'm not gonna sit here and act like Mike Malone didn't have, struggle with some of those. He struggled with timeouts. As we said, sometimes he put people in the doghouse far too long. There's moments when we had people like JaVale McGee that couldn't get on the court with Mike Malone.
Right.
I remember Sark can't get on the court.
Sark
I'm not saying Sark need to be on the court, but
Can't get on.
he can't get on. And Mike Malone was really hard on some of those players, but it still resulted in wins and it still resulted in championships. So Mike Malone will forever be a legend. I think there's other people in Nuggets Nation that will say they're happy that Mike Malone's gone too. I'm not necessarily going to sit here and say I'm happy to Mike Malone's gone, but to Chris's point, I wanted Calvin Booth gone above everybody. So the fact that he's gone, this is not a sad day. It is just the day to me as a Nuggets fan.
Yeah. And I think the thing about it, I'll say one nice thing, and I think it's the only thing I'm ever capable of saying nice about Calvin Booth, is that he won the championship. And to your point about the ideology, and that's what's coming out now.
Right.
Those that were close to it, players, insiders, they did a good job of
Just Nuggets podcast.
Yeah, they did a good job of keeping it from leaking. But there was an ideology battle between those two, figures in the organization, which should be your battery. Those two, the head coach and the GM, need to be in lockstep if you want to have a great team. But the thing I'll say about Calvin is his first moves as GM when he obtained the reins, the championship level team he inherited that from Tim Conley. And his first moves was he made the KCP trade and he signed Bruce Brown. Those are both great moves, and they're both veterans.
Right.
Both veterans. And guess what it did? It turned into a winning formula. And your draft picks did hit. You got CB and you got Peyton Watson. But they were in very much so rookie roles because you went and got veterans to operate a space and put it with that core, and you got a championship.
And also, didn't you get Jeff Green too? You got Jeff Green and
no, Jeff Green was already on the Jeff Green was already on there. But moral of the story is, then in subsequent 2 years after that, then you say, I want to do this big brain youth movement. And then you don't acquire the necessary. You can go listen to the last 15 pods if you want me to get into the specifics of him not making any moves. But you go out there and say, I'm going to do the youth movement. And you go out there and you get rookies who certainly just haven't panned out. You could say Jalen Pickett needs more time, but Jalen Pickett is not a franchise cornerstone guy. Neither is
Gillespie too, and then now he's somewhere else.
And he's in Phoenix he's playing
well.
Well, he's undrafted anyway.
He was undrafted, but moral of the story is you wanted to bet a win now team on rookies.
Yeah.
That's an issue. That is a philosophical issue. Mike Malone is a old blue collar basketball guy. He knew, as Dot just mentioned, that this team had a window. Not only did they have a window, you just won a championship.
Yeah.
So when you won a championship, you guys just proved, and you won it in 20 games. You only lost 4 times. You kind of lapped the competition on the way there. If you go out there and you get them another free agent, you retain the individuals you're able to, even if you have to let Brucey B walk, you go out there and get someone, or you look at the trade deadline and see that you're sitting there in the 1-2 seed again.
Yeah,
you're in that race, that was a 3-horse race last season. You go out there and get an arm. You go
Yeah.
out there and get it. You make a deal. You go push for that championship. And he never did that. Coach Malone, the thing I'll say about Coach Malone was you new Nuggets fans that are just waking up or you joined in 2022, welcome, you know? But Coach Malone was on the hot seat in the bubble.
Yep.
Yeah, he was.
If it was not for Jamal Murray
Jamal Murray.
saving that man's job.
Going 50 points with Donovan Mitchell in the
Yes,
bubble.
and coming back from a 3-1, not
Yeah,
once,
twice.
but twice.
Twice.
That saved Coach Malone's job
Sure did. Yes, it
5
did.
years ago.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy for me to say this, but he was playing with house money for the last 5 years. He got a championship.
Yeah.
We all knew this team was good enough to do it. And even in the bubble, did we know that Yoke was going to ascend to this height? We knew he was phenomenal. Did we
Yeah.
know he was like
3 MVPs.
wilting?
Yeah, right.
Oh, but we still don't know the level where he's going. You know what
No,
I
we
mean?
don't.
We can't say that we knew it in 2020 because in 2025 we still don't know where he's going. So Malone, we will give him all the flowers he needs, but he was a stubborn, hard-nosed coach that he was stuck in his ways, and they had a rift. Like
Yeah.
he would call them soft every other game. He
Yeah.
was talking
Yeah.
about he didn't watch film 2 nights ago. And Dot, before I let you respond, I'm gonna say it's something that you said off. You and I had off pod conversation is even like looking behind the curtain on this pod, like while we haven't even been recording that much this certainly the second half of the season so far is because it's hard to come out here and create content for you all, the listener, that we already know. We're just beating a dead horse.
Yeah.
The issues have been the same all season. The bench
For
isn't
the
good.
last 2 years.
Yeah, the bench isn't good. They have no depth, and you're working.
Your starters and your
We're working that
1 through
starter
8,
to
1 through
death.
7 to death.
And then how many times do you want to hear me, Christoph, just say, "Oh, it's Calvin Booth's fault. It's Calvin Booth's fault. You need to fire him." Like, my God, yes, I get sick of it. You want to know why? Because it was so blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
And,
Well, the other thing too,
and it's
and
like you can do whatever you want. Like, sorry, I said I was gonna be done.
no. Yeah. The
Let's
other thing
go
too,
for
I'll
ourselves
just
in the
say
bar.
this. You said it. The other thing too is in the Minnesota game. Now you understand what happened. I know people were like, well, how did they were up, 20 points and then they lost that game? It's game 7 where they were tired. And I've said that. So if you go back on many of the pods, I've said that 100,000 times. And this year, I think Michael Malone was trying not to run them in the ground, but we didn't have any. It was like he went in the bag to pull somebody out when he needed somebody to make a 3 or to play some defense. And he was at the end of the talented list of people in his mind, his veterans or his people he trusted. That number, it wasn't deep. And
Jay,
so,
to your point, in game 7, Calvin Booth's moves, I've said this stat on this pod before. Calvin Booth's moves in the offseason, his offseason moves post them winning a championship in game 7 at home amounted for 0 points.
yeah, well,
All your rookies, all your offseason acquisitions, 0 points.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to say the other thing when it comes to specifically to the Malone part, I guess this is more of a question than me saying something. But did you think before today that Malone would get fired? And the reason why I asked was like, to us, for me, it was hard for me to evaluate Malone as like it's time for him to go because I was so focused on Calvin Booth's role and why Malone was coaching poorly this year, right?
Yeah.
So on one hand, it's easy to be like, well, to be fair, Mike Malone was struggling as a coach because he was. But I was like, there is a problem with the personnel, so I can't even be mad at Malone and all the stuff that Malone's not doing right because it felt like it wasn't his year for me to be mad at. You know what I mean? I can't be mad at Malone when we have a big glaring error at the GM. So in this case, did you feel like Malone was on the hot seat the way he was that you're like, all right,
No, he was not.
firing?
No. And the reason why I can say that with such assurance that I'm telling you what I know, not what I think, is because when everybody that knew anything, even people on television that you just watch the Nuggets every now and then said, Oh, I thought they were going to get somebody to go a Joker after the All-Star break. I thought they want to trade. Everybody, all these names was coming out. This person, that, we had an opportunity to get, or our names was in there with their name or something, it's Jimmy Butler here, or this, all kinds of stuff. But none of it materialized because he did not make a move. I think if he had made a move with a veteran, that maybe could have helped us. And then we have other teams getting everybody. We have the Lakers getting Luka. Now the Warriors have Jimmy Butler. I mean, so they got better. We stood still now for 2 years.
Yeah. And I heard that the front office, like the Cronkies, were the ones that didn't want to get rid of Michael Porter.
Right.
Spending a lot of money on him.
They did. They not only spending our money, he came into a really good basketball player on there. When he came into the league, they drafted him. He had back issues and he got the surgeries he needed, and he got better and he learned how to play with the team, and so they saw him as he. You know what? Our starters are not the problem. MPJ,
You're handcuffed by his deal in a lot of ways because he's getting paid like I've attest on this.
Mhm.
He's getting paid like Jason Tatum with the production of Michael Porter Jr. And that handcuffs you. And maybe that's another point in to the former GM. That felt so good saying it. So I'm gonna say it one more time. To the former GM Calvin Booth's point. Is like, what can you expect me to do when I have 3 max contracts?
Don't pay.
Don't
pay Zeke Najee $8 million.
Yeah, poor.
Come on. I was trying to be nice, guys. I was tearing down my stuff too because my biggest one is like, oh my God, we're gonna go out and get Justin Holiday, and guess what? Malik Beasley signed for $250,000 less than Justin Holiday. So it's like your talent evaluation. Say everyone's like, oh, he's such a genius, he's such a great mind and finding talent. What? You hit on CB and you hit on Peyton Watson, but you had 6 other draft picks that have done nothing.
Here's the most foolish part. If you're so good at the building from the draft, why would you trade 3 second-round picks for Reggie Jackson? Or like to get rid of Reggie Jackson? Like if your whole goal is to build from the draft, why get rid of 3 second-round picks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he would say
the dude's an idiot.
I know, I'm just saying.
I'm gonna refrain from peeing on the man's grave. I will stomp on it happily, but I'm not gonna pee on the man's grave.
I guess last point. So did you expect Mike Malone to get fired or not?
See, here's the thing. I think it's a blind spot because we all liked Malone for all his quirks, and he lost the locker room, and it was a toxic work environment because you were either a Calvin guy or you were a Michael guy.
Yeah, that's probably true.
On and off the court, and it created a toxic work environment. And from that, when you see Jokic, I won't say he's mild-mannered. He, for the most part, like off the court and on the bench, mild-mannered, but he's always, very loosey-goosey, and he shows his emotion on the court. So I can't say he's emotionless. Yeah. He expresses himself.
Yes, he does.
You can't say that he doesn't. But when he's doing that and he's in a visceral way on the bench, I've never seen that from him.
Yeah.
He looked ticked.
And that was our last week. That was one of those games last week because we had 4 games.
We did it in February.
4 in a row.
Against at home versus Cleveland, when they were getting smoked, they were down by like 30, and he was pissed. Mm-hmm. He was pissed. And you're losing your cornerstone best franchise player and the best player on the planet by a pretty hefty margin, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. But you're losing him. You have to do something. You have to clean the slate. And like I said, I love him. We got a championship from him, and I think this might just be the way of the NBA because it's Frank Vogel, it's Nick Nurse, it's Mike Budenholzer, it's now Mike Malone, Tyrone Lue. Like, you won a championship, and a couple years later, you're gone.
Within
Yeah.
Within 2 or 3 years, you're gone, and that's a sad, but the reality of the situation. Trust me, I would love for him not to be a part of that list, but you lost the locker room, and you created a toxic work environment for all parties. You had to go.
Like I said, I think the reason why I didn't call for Mike Malone's firing on this podcast at any given time was less about bias and not being like, oh, Mike Malone is. I just thought I can't even get to Mike Malone yet because of Calvin Booth.
No, it's
That
first
was
and
mine.
first.
I don't think I was biased like Mike Malone can't get fired or he's above getting fired. It would just seem like to me, it's hard for me to be like Mike Malone's the problem when you have this.
Because we're watching what's happening on the
You have
court.
when you have the two sides of an argument going at each other.
Yeah.
And it's
That
the
was
worst
in the, that was in the out there for us. We were looking at what was happening on the court, and what was happening on the court was always the same. You just didn't have enough people to keep with. That's how they invented non-joker minutes. Why do you think that matters? Because it matters every game, every game. And he goes out at least twice in a game. He goes out once or so in the first half and once or so in the second, and every time is non-joker minutes, and you can hand them, it's historic. You can hand them a 10-point lead, and you have to pray that is zero by, flat, and nothing worse by the time he gets back.
That has a lot to do with how the team's constructed and the rotation. So in both parties, the rotation element and the role, like the pieces that are on the court. Booth never gave him pieces outside of the one he did. And
right.
then
And that's why you couldn't get
the one move, the two moves we say we give him the most credit, yielded him a championship. And the 2 following summers, he undid it.
Yeah.
And you messed up. You laid your bed and it's done. I do have a question for you guys both though. What was your initial reaction when you first heard it? Because Dot, you reading your text message, you're the one that broke the news to me. I thought you were joking for a second. I want to know what your initial reactions were.
Well,
and I'll say mine really fast and I'll give you guys the room. I was pissed off initially because all I heard was they fired Malone. And I said, they fired Malone? Why'd they fire Malone when Booth is the one that needs to go? Like I felt like Jesse Pinkman meme. I don't know, you don't get this, Jace. Like he's like, why does he keep getting away with this? Like that was me. I was until I got that and Boop gets fired. I was like, oh, thank God. Then I got super happy.
Well, see,
and hope came back.
See this. I think me and Jays might have similar because we were on the phone together. So to your point, yes, that first part was like, why Malone get fired and not Calvin Booth? And we're listening to the radio station. I don't know who was talking, and they're like, so that must mean that. They're like for Mike Malone to get fired and not that Booth, that must mean Booth. And they're like kind of hyping up Booth for a second. And the guy's like, hey, I would just like to stop you. I guess they were talking to Shams or somebody. They're like, or whatever.
Yeah.
They're like, I just want to stop you right there on that point you're about to make because it was just announced from Shams or Shams that they're actually gonna fire Calvin Booth too. And
it was radio 92.5, which is altitude radio, and they were getting it on their phone. They were getting because I was like, why are they not telling their own darn radio station, the information? But Shams was putting it out as they were picking up their phones and writing it down for the people that was on the radio that Calvin Booth also got fired. And then everybody just cheered because we were like, you gotta be kidding me. We are not gonna sit here tonight and have Malone get fired and not Calvin Booth.
Once Malone got fired, it was like, dang, for real, like it was like crazy. So once Calvin Booth it was like all was right in the world. It was like, okay, the Nuggets are resetting. Because if we were sitting here, I don't even know. I'm just being honest with our listeners. I don't think it would have been possible for us to sit on this podcast right now if we're sitting here and Mike Malone's fired and Calvin Booth's still there.
Yeah, that would have been horrible.
Going on?
I would.
It would be so. It'd be so mad. But like from here, at least you can now say, hey, we did that whole era of the Nuggets. That's ground zero. We can build from what we have. We still got the best basketball player in the world. We still got Aaron Gordon under contract. We still got Jamal Murray under contract.
Yes.
Porter under contract. And CB, hopefully we pay him this year because he's gonna have to be underneath contract too.
Yeah.
You have these 5 players that either you're gonna continue to move forward with, trade one of them, trade two of them, but no matter what, this is gonna be your nucleus of how you build to get to your
Around Joker. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you look at it the way I see it, you can't sit here and tell me that there's a better opening. Like, you're gonna want to go to Memphis over Denver.
no.
You're gonna want to go to Portland or insert what's Sacramento. You're gonna want to go to Sacramento over Denver. Like,
Yeah.
you have a team, as we've all touched on, has just won a championship within the last 3 years, who has the MVP, who's won three, it should be four, but that's neither here nor there anymore.
We're not going to talk about that.
Three of the last four MVPs.
Yes.
You have the bones of a championship team. I think this is a luring thing. I've been ringing this alarm, and I've heard some idiots. I'm not gonna say who they are. And if you are listening to this podcast and you believe that we should not have number one Bob Myers, I don't know what to say to you other than I just don't agree.
As
There's a
as
lot
the
of things I could
GM,
say to you
as
and
the
call you,
next GM.
but I just don't think
Bob Myers is
I think Bob, yeah, as GM, excuse me. I just think that I think here's why I messed that up. I think you have to hire GM first. Hire GM, because if you hire
It'd be disrespectful if you don't. It would
if
just
you
be
hire the
because
coach,
GMs are supposed to hire and be a part of the conversation around a coach.
and I
Yes.
think you literally just had a day, as we just called it, Liberation Day, because see you later, Mr. Booth. That you just had the same issue, that you got rid of your coach and your GM on the same day. If you then go hire a coach and then a GM, you do it backwards. I think that's like you're breeding the same possibility.
Crazy. The same crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, doing it over and over again is the, definition of insanity. So you have to get a GM in here. And I think that the GM, the perfect one, is sitting there on television talking about you all tonight. And his name is Bob Myers. For those who don't know, he built the Warriors dynasty. His first draft, he drafted Harrison Barnes and Draymond Green. He inherited the Splash Brothers, Steph and Clay. They weren't the Splash Brothers yet. They came that under his tutelage and under his regime. Got 4 championships under that, right? And I was mentioning this or thinking about this earlier. Is like, sometimes people have the Midas touch, and you gotta track that. Like, this man won 4 championships with the Warriors, right? He's working with ESPN, and one of the things, he became a consultant for the Washington Commanders NFL team, National Football League team, and he was a part of the committee that helped find their new GM and hire their head coach. And if you don't follow the NFL, that Washington Commanders team, they drafted a quarterback, and they got to the conference championship. So one game before the Super Bowl, and Bob Myers had his hand in that. Some people have the Midas touch. You look at Phil Jackson, he won in Chicago. He comes to the Lakers, he continues to win. You look at Pat Riley, he won with the Lakers. He then goes to New York with the Knicks, he won there. He goes to Miami, he won there. He won at all levels, the executive coach and as a player. Red Auerbach won in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. Some people have the Midas touch. And just the writing on the wall from what I'm seeing is Bob Myers could be one of those guys. So to pass on that, and the opportunity standing right there, I think you got to do it. And I think you hammer home the executive, get the GM in first, and then the coach. I don't have any truly good ideas. Some of the names I was passing out to you, Dot, and Jay's earlier was a few, some Bruce Frazier. He'd be a first time head coach. You guys have seen him. He's a gray hair guy that always is like out there shooting with Steph. He was a part of those. He's part of the coaching staff. He's got 4 rings. And then I like Jama Mahamale, and he's a young guy. He's with I believe he's like an assistant with the Toronto Raptors right now, but he was with the Warriors earlier. He's a young up and coming mind, and I think so. My two I just want to throw out there are like an older guy who hasn't got his shot yet, and then a younger guy who's kind of on his way up. And I think you could go either way. What is your thoughts? Do you think
Would you have a coach from the assistant staff for the Nuggets or no?
we'll see what David Adelman does? I think that's it. I think that's the elephant in the room. The season's not over. Like like we
No,
just
not.
said, they could be as high as a 3 seed. They could be out the playoffs because they didn't make the play in. I highly doubt that will happen. But like they're gonna be in the playoffs. And if David Adelman, somehow rights the ship, like if he takes his team to the Western Conference Finals, I still think you get a new head coach, but that's just me.
What
But
about if Chauncey gets fired?
I love Chauncey, but I wouldn't want him as a head coach. He hasn't proven that he was good as a head coach. He got in a bad
What
situation.
about Steve Nash?
Same deal. I wouldn't want Steve Nash as my head coach.
And then there's also the one that's from
Frank
Memphis.
Vogel, or Taylor Jenkins.
Taylor Jenkins is available.
I think all of those are all right. Like I said, the two names I threw out there, yes, they've never had a head coaching experience, but I think if you get Bob Myers is the one I want. Bob Myers, who I want.
They'll figure it out. That's what you.
All I want is Bob Myers because
Yeah, I don't. The coach, I don't know enough to say.
I'm gonna say the same
I
thing.
was gonna say Adelman because he's gonna be. He knows the team, and he's gonna be getting a trial. We'll see how he does now with the
I have
playoffs.
one more point before you go. And the thing about the Bob Myers thing is because if you hire Bob Myers, that's a identifier to not only your team, but every other player who's a free agent or
Denver
is
wants to
looking
win.
out, is that Denver wants to win a championship. If you go get some analytic guy that was in your front office or he was in Houston's front office and he's the new up and coming mind,
Yeah.
unproven, but
Yeah.
he's super smart and knows basketball.
Bob Myers just doesn't want to get back into.
That's true, yeah. But that's true. Or he's asking for astronomical money or something like that. Like if he's on the table, you have to get that. And it signifies to all of those players out there that the Nuggets are serious, and it signifies to your guys in that locker room currently that we're serious.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna move y'all along because I think what's the next thing we need to talk about is what do you think our chances are in the playoffs? As constructed that we just dissected, and with the new coach.
Yeah, I give it a 1.5 chance, and the reason
Out of what?
out of 99 that we'll make it to the. What are you saying? Win the championship? Or you saying
No, I'm just saying how you think we're gonna do in the playoffs. I
I
don't.
said 1.5 is because we do have Nikola Jokic, and
1.5 to get where? Where? How far with him?
anywhere we need to go. We need to go championship. I still think with Jokic, he's Jokic. I don't think we're going to. But there's just some people you don't bet against.
No, you don't bet against the
Don't
fat.
bet against the fat boy.
You don't bet against the fat boy for sure.
Even if it's slim to none that we win, I'm just still like, if Jokic puts his mind to it and Jamal puts his mind to it,
Yeah.
AG and all them, I mean, they're still as talented as any team in the West.
Yes.
I just don't think it's gonna happen this year. But why count out Nick Jokic?
And the reason why you don't think it will happen is not because of our, we haven't. We might have mentioned Russ. I think the five you talked about, Joker, Murray, MPJ, AG, and Christian. Those are the five. And then Russ comes off the bench with Peyton Watson and possibly Pickett. But anyone else is just going to be anyone else. I don't, we'll see how it's going to be fascinating to see how the new coach does.
Yeah, it's going to be different now without
Mike
Malone. Mike Malone, that bench is stopped at 8, but who knows? Adam might run a 9.
Yeah. It could have went, what? Some of this might have went, I'm guessing, some of this might have went off the rail when Strother came back and they didn't insert him back into the game at all. He's over there. He was, he could shoot a 3 perhaps. And then they put him in that last game and he didn't do very much because he was rusty as all get out. But if you had been playing him all along.
This is why it's so hard for me to doubt pull out the Nuggets. Because say, for example, we wanted to get into that 2-3 because 2-3 implied that you would not play Thunder, blah, blah,
right.
blah, all that type of stuff. The Nuggets right now are virtually a 7 seed because of the tiebreakers, right?
Yeah. We have not been
Although
winning
we're currently
against those teams.
stationed in the fourth, we have enough losses, and if there's a tiebreaker to go with
We
all
aren't gonna get it, so we'll fall.
7. So basically, we'd be still in that set 2-7 game. If we're in the 2-7 game, and say we just win that first 7-8, we're the 7th seed. Let's just call ourselves the 7th seed. We're playing Houston. I mean, like, am I gonna count the Nuggets out against the Houston
No,
Rockets?
I'm not.
I just won't. Like, I mean, not to say they can't lose, but I still think that would be disappointing if we lost to Houston, even if we don't have Michael Malone. So we
Right.
get out of that game. Now we're playing. Now we're out of that. So we'd play the
2-3.
we play a
2-3.
2-3. Well, we'd be the 2, so we'd play the 3. So we're looking at the 3-6 matchup. So you're looking at
Yeah,
the
if the
Lakers.
3 wins, we're looking at the 3
You're looking at the Lakers, and you're looking at Golden State.
Yeah.
They're both teams that probably would be ahead of us now because of no coaching and all that type of stuff. But we beat the Lakers before plenty of times, and we've beaten Golden State plenty of times.
Correct.
I'm gonna count the Nuggets out against them.
It's
No.
possible. We have a good possibility. So then you get it through the Western Conference and you meet where you were supposed to be anyways.
And we lose it, and then we lose where we thought we'd probably lose anyway. So I think that's why I said it's still gonna be hard for us to win a whole championship, but I'm just not counting them out yet because the way we're lining up is still the same way we're gonna line up in that 2 seed anyways.
Yeah.
I think they're competitors, and when they get out on that court, a lot of stuff happened off the court that they're gonna find solace out there, and I think all they're gonna have is each other. You know,
Tomorrow will be a great test too. Like tomorrow, like we'll get a good example of like who the Nuggets want to be tomorrow. You know.
Yeah. And tomorrow means they have a
Are they
game
coming out
tomorrow.
playing
They're
defense? Are they
playing
scoring?
Sacramento. They play
Like,
Sacramento tomorrow.
Tomorrow will be a good just like litmus test of seeing like who the Nuggets want to be.
Yeah.
20 games.
It's three for the audience. It's 3 more games left.
Yeah.
We play Sacramento, we play Memphis, and then we play Houston.
Because
on
at the end of
Sunday.
the day, like we're fans. At the end of the day, everyone else you hear talking about this is a member of the media. You know, they're players. You know, they if you lost the locker room or you stopped listening to them, whatever it is, like Coach Malone was your guy.
Yeah.
Calvin Booth was the guy that drafted you. You know, like you feel some type of way that your play and you guys' inability to come together and win games lost two
real, yes. They
you
probably
need
do
your
feel
job.
some guilt. They probably feel something.
You know, and at the end of the day, they're gonna either they have to, you know, are they gonna pack it in? Or
I
you
doubt
gonna
it.
say,
I doubt they're not that's not the team that we know.
that's not the
They're
team we
that.
know. And that's where I think Dot was kind of say is like he has too much faith and this team is too talented and they have the best player in the world to just say that they're gonna lose like willy-nilly.
So let me ask you this. We just talked about the bubble, and we came back twice, 3-1. Who was on that team now that was there then? That pulled it all together and won, came back from 3-1 twice.
Yoke, Malone, and MPJ. That was it.
There were 3 of our starters.
Yeah, but end of the day, I think the Nuggets either. I think they probably get if I'm being realistic, I think they either go deep, like game 6, game 7, and bow out in the first round, or they get out of the first round and go 5, 6, 7 with the next team.
Yeah, I think realistically we lose in the second round. Just because of all this stuff and everything and kind of our sliding and all that.
Just been a tough season. And at the end of the day, they don't have a bench.
They don't.
You know, we don't have Booth anymore. And the funny part is with the dude left us, you know, he left us cold. You know, it's not like he's gone and now all of a sudden, like we have Justin, you know, like we have, you know, Drew Holiday or, you know, or someone. You know, it's not like we got Brucey B back or anything. Like we still the same issues that have been plagued us all season are still there.
Yep.
Like now we just don't have the coach that was dealing with it. We have a new coach dealing with the same issues. So I think I said, if you asked me 2 weeks ago, if you asked me 2 months ago, I thought this team is good enough to get out the first round and they'll probably bow in the second. If you ask me today, all the stuff that has happened, I think they're good enough to get out the first round. They'll probably be out in the second.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about 2 minutes remaining?
2 minutes remaining.
2 minutes remaining. I mean, there's so much still to talk about for the Nuggets. Maybe there's just too much. But for the 2 minutes remaining, we will be talking about Coach Malone and
Good.
favorite memories, favorite moments from the Nuggets all time winning as coach, Mike Malone. Since I'm bringing it to the table today, I'll take the easiest one on the board, and that is who's your daddy?
Yeah.
No. Actually, someone else will probably take that. That's
No, you can do it.
My
We'll
favorite-
find some more.
my
We'll figure out
favorite is-
something else.
he said, I don't care where you at, you can take that L when you leave.
Take that L when you leave.
Take that L when you leave.
Yeah, we all could just chime in. Who's your daddy? Take that L when you leave. The way he would just just talk about and embrace Joker and his and all of his ways he was and defend the team when he needed to at the press conference and kept them at bay and take a technical when he knew that they needed a little bit. It didn't always work, but I just think it was one of our year that we won the championship was the perfect year to see how we were gelling as a team. That's why we know we don't do it now, because we know what it looks like. Yep. We know what that looks like. And so I just the way he was with the team, I always, they always said family at the end. And I think when they would, go to the huddle and the when they win or lost a game, he would give them the neck defensive player of the game. So he had a whole lot of little things that kept them motivated and connected. And it fell apart after being together a long time. So all those are my memories.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things I'll say, but my favorite Calvin Booth moment was seeing his face next to "fired today." I think that was by far my favorite. Like seeing that tweet that had his face and "fired." Right. By far my favorite Calvin Booth moment as a Nugget or former GM of the Denver Nuggets. Thank you, God. See you later. I do not like you. See you later, bro.
Championship.
Yeah, whatever. Thank you. You got a ring. So does Ish Smith, bro. Leave. Be gone. Vanish to the underrealm. See you never, my friend. My favorite I think I love about Mike Malone is something that probably lost his locker room is he always called them soft. Like that just
oh my gosh.
Always made me laugh because it stopped working, bro. Like, but it got to a point where it was like even then, like, okay, whatever, bro. Like you're gonna call us soft. Like it was like every other game he's like, we just played soft. Like normally coaches use that to like motivate their team. Yeah. Like it's like you
it might have worked the first couple of times he did it, but after a while, no.
But then he just then it became mute. Like you just say it all the time. One that made me smile, like Kyle Dot looked at me when he sat down, and I was over here smiling. I just kept thinking about him with his championship hat on and the glass, and he got the necklace on, he had the chain on, and he was just like, Brucey B coming back, Brucey B, running it back,
we're running it back,
coming back, or just the first time I saw him on the sideline, and he had the suit on, and I just remember I was like, this guy was a good coach in Sacramento.
Yeah,
I was like, he looks like he's a good Nuggets guy. And we went through all the Brian Shaw disaster, and it was just turmoil as a Nuggets to be
at the coaching position.
The organization, the franchise was just in a weird spot. And thanks to him and Nicola, and later on Jamal, G, MPJ, Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, Jeff Green, DeAndre Jordan, all these names.
Now he did get, isn't this true?
He wrote the ship, and it was his, and he cast that vision.
Yeah.
And if you're a Nuggets fan, in some semblance, a little bit of your thank you needs to go to him.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And because his spirit was through this team.
Oh, yeah.
And that attitude, that aggression, that take that L on the way home, like he wasn't afraid to talk down on
No,
people.
he wasn't. He could
Like, I'm
talk
a
smack.
Nuggets fan that's old enough to know that the Lakers they used to smack us around. Now we say, "Who's your daddy?"
Yeah.
Where's Embiid at? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that energy that we put our chest out, and probably reason a lot of people don't like the Nuggets fans. That is Mike Malone.
It was. It was him.
You know,
It is
and
him.
I hope we move forward. If it's Bob Myers, if it's XYZ coach, I hope that is what we take from him. And yeah, so I liked Coach Malone.
I love that.
And
Coach.
obviously, Jays, you and I met him. He was a good guy.
Oh,
Like,
he's a good guy.
he was a good guy in actuality, not just like on
Yeah.
the screen. He was a good guy. So, you know,
Great coach.
I'm sad to see him go, but it doesn't. I've been saying it, like, you got to crack some eggs to make an omelet. And
Yeah.
my goal, and all I wanted from this season was not a championship. It was for Calvin Booth to get fired.
And you got your wish, and we're good.
If that's the eggs that need to be cracked was Mike Malone getting fired, I will gladly eat this omelet.
Yeah, I would say also another one that's great for Malone was the one when they won on like the 7-player team when they're on that plane.
Yeah,
That one
against
was a really good
Utah.
one. Against Utah. There's only like 6 of them on the plane. Mike
Mhm.
Malone was one of them. Jamal. I appreciate Mike Malone, especially coming off the heaps of like George Karl and all them.
Yeah.
Have like a player coach, and I think he was like one of I guess Doug Moe might have been a player coach. I'm not sure, maybe not. But Mike Malone was a really great player coach. Like he talked. He got Michael Porter to buy in.
Yeah.
He got Jamal to buy in.
Yeah.
Okay,
We saw all of it. We watched all of it happen.
So yeah, I think that's it's gonna be hard to find another player coach like that, especially as the NBA is kind of starting to continue to evolve and all that. But it'll be interesting to see who we get. I think the Nuggets are, and no matter what, this podcast has got a lot more interesting. So
Yeah.
And before you go, I think there's one last thing I want to say. I was a Nuggets fan before Coach Malone. I was a Nuggets fan before Calvin Booth. I was a Nuggets fan before MPJ. I was a Nuggets fan before Nikola Jokic, and I'll be a Nuggets fan after they're all gone. And
Yeah.
and that's what happens. It's the evolution of it, you know. So so long, and thank you for your time.
yeah,
Yeah.
Nuggets.
Go Nuggets. And looking forward to tomorrow's game. I'm telling you that. That'll be interesting.
Yep. Oh, from the Just Nuggets podcast, my name is K. Colley. You can find us on the Just Nuggets podcast, returning for the playoffs because the Nuggets have not been knocked.
Oh, yeah.
And Christoph Yalich, thank you for another episode. Just Janet, thank you for another episode.
Those Nuggets.
Yeah, obviously you can find us on Twitter or whatever, X. You can find us on X at Just Nuggets Pod. And from the Just Nuggets podcast, go Nuggets.
Go Nuggets.
Go Nuggets.